We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Deep in a New Mexico cave, microbes are doing photosynthesis in total darkness, which sounds impossible until it rewrites what we think life needs to survive. And then a conversation starts about where in the universe life might be hiding. We're here with someone who has researched this weird, wacky life. His name is Lars Berendt. He's a microbial ecologist at Uppsala University and the Technical University of Denmark. Lars, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, David.
You go to a cave, you shine a flashlight, and then you see it glowing green. What do you think? You think someone's down there playing around with glow-in-the-dark stuff, or you're on to something very strange in the world of biology?
Yeah, both, I think. I was really excited when you kind of can test your hypothesis as a scientist, and suddenly you think you might have actually found something. So we went down into these caves based on some research that I did earlier in my PhD, and this was on kind of very special type of photosynthesis that we thought obscure, and we looked around different places, and eventually we stumbled into caves, and yeah, there it was. Lo and behold.
Look, I took biology in high school. I did badly in biology in university. When I hear photosynthesis in total darkness, I think that's a contradiction. Don't you need sunlight for photosynthesis?
Yeah, I think maybe what we need to define is a bit light, right? So typically we look at something called white light, which are, specific wavelengths of light without boring you about the details. But there's a little bit of an extra in the red part that typically we as humans cannot perceive and see, yet it is actually used by bacteria to drive photosynthesis in these environments where we as humans cannot perceive light anymore, but they certainly can, and they use it to survive.
So infrared light that this life is soaking up, turning into food for itself. It sounds almost science fiction. Tell me about how it works a little bit more technically.
Yeah, so this is basically a discovery made 25 years ago, which is a very special photopigment. So think chlorophyll, what you also have in your average plant leaves that you look at when you look out the window. And this molecule has a slight modification to it, and that it actually allows it to harvest, use, and take in the light of this very specific wavelengths, which is kind of so-called red shifted. And so another one of these chlorophylls has been discovered in 2010. And so it really expands now the range of the ability to drive photosynthesis in different environments. And so that excited us quite a bit. And of course, the field overall.
Well, let's talk different environments, because if we zoom out and we think of what life needs to actually live, that sounds weird, but I guess it makes sense. Yeah. We start to think out in the cosmos. What can we learn from the life that you've discovered about possible life out there far away around exotic stars, on exotic rocks and things like this?
Yeah, so I think astrobiologists are quite excited about this because it ultimately might give us some hinters and pointers where to look a bit closer. So I think, many of the other kind of planets and stars that we can observe often are exposed to quite a lot of UV light. You might have heard about that. So you also get, as a human, if you're exposed to a lot of UV light, you get a sunburn. The same happens to bacteria. They ultimately can die if they're exposed to too much. And this is very, very hard radiation. So they basically die on the surface. So why not look below the surface, which obviously are caves? And so where do you do that? On Earth, in actual cave ecosystems on Earth. So I think this is perhaps the closest analog, perhaps, we don't know, this is a hypothesis, to what might happen out in these other kind of planets that we have not yet discovered, but maybe where we should have a closer look about life.
If we go back to the caves, my understanding is the microbes you're discovering and studying that are absorbing this darkness, if that makes any sense, have been untouched for many millions of years, approximately 49 million years. It's kind of wild that these microbes have been isolated for that long, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we could define isolation, maybe human isolated. So probably there's a very low chance that human have gathered down in these particular environments where we were. But I think there's a frequent exchange of bats, for example. Bats go in and out of these caves. So, there is life, of course, that also exchanges with the surface and the subsurface. But as far as human interactions with some of these ecosystems, I think these are quite clean and extreme and really stable for what is available as kind of systems in on planet Earth, right? Because we have basically polluted and touched most of these environments already as humans.
I personally have. I try not to, though. Bad joke. What does that kind of isolation do to life as it evolves?
That is a good question, and I don't have an answer to it. I think evolutionary speaking, this is quite interesting. So what could happen when these microbes interact, and what perhaps even novel molecules may you find down there that might help humans overall, besides these photopigments, because I think there's a lot of interesting microbiology down there that is somewhat accessible, actually, yet quite hidden compared to, for example, marine ecosystems. So I don't have an answer to you, but I think those are those questions that I would love to delve a bit deeper into in my career now.
Is there anything we can do to potentially look at planets far off or detect what's in the atmosphere of planets far off to try to see if there's life like this? Maybe narrowing it down to like a few dozen candidate planets at stars that might provide light like this, and then shooting James Webb at it to take a closer look?
Yeah, I mean, so this is really not my forte. So I'm this is not what I do for a living. But yes, exactly. So I think these so-called red dwarf stars, of which there are many out there, they seem to have a spectral signature, kind of the light that is being emitted by them, that is much closer to perhaps in the infrared range, which is of course where we now have observed these cells actually are photosynthesizing. So that makes them candidates. How do we detect it otherwise? My understanding is that you can detect signatures of oxygen, which is a really good proxy for life because oxygen doesn't normally occur and just float around. So if you find oxygen in the atmosphere, there's a good probability that perhaps life has occurred or is occurring on that planet. But how exactly NASA and the experts on that domain do it, I dare not say.
Now, I feel like half a century ago, the list of things that we thought life needed to thrive, like direct sunlight, oxygen, like it was very narrow. And then as we discover more and more, I think a lot of these species are called extremophiles, like at the bottom of the ocean, in these caves with no sunlight, doing photosynthesis. It seems like life thrives wherever we look, even if it doesn't follow the rules we thought it did.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? So, I mean, I think this is really like... my career's choice as a microbial ecologist, this is what excites me. I think you can, anywhere you would look, you would most likely find life, even in the most extreme environments. And so, as you said, from the bottom of the ocean to, our outer stratosphere, you will probably find some type of life signatures that really only underpins how important our planet ultimately is in this context.
Now, are there any other exciting facts or any things about this cave and the bacteria you found there that you want to share?
Yeah, so I think what I think really for me put it all together in an exciting story was that so yes, light goes down there. I think maybe that's exciting by itself and it's used, but I think what was really cool for me was that the internal cave environment, so the walls in a way have probably a huge effect on that. What wavelengths are actually going into the bottom of the cave? So think of it as like kind of a hall of mirrors, I think was mentioned in the article. So in a way that cave walls can reshape the light environment by themselves simply due to the material properties. And I think that's a super cool, both in terms of applied scientists, maybe we can use some of these materials to perhaps build systems that are more effective at transmitting light, but also from a fundamental ecology standpoint that, the environment ultimately selects for these microbes. And I think that was really, for me, tying it all beautiful together. So that was the most exciting finding for me, besides, of course, finding these things down there.
And what are the walls made out of? Limestone or something like that?
Yes. Yeah, so they're limestone. And so first tests that we did, basically, we showed that, the internal reflectance, as it is called, in a way, favors these infrared radiation, that the red part of the light spectrum to go deeper down into the cave than the other ones. And so there seems to be some kind of enrichment at the bottom of that due to the light reflective properties of the walls themselves.
Well, Lars Berendt is a microbial ecologist at Uppsala University and the Technical University of Denmark. Lars, thanks for sharing your cave research with me. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.